So today's topic is the Samr model. The Samr model is something that I've covered with groups. I try to cover it with groups every year. I don't recall if I've had a 100% rate on every building and every group, but this year I'm going to try to. Um, the Samr model is a model used to help gauge the level of technology integration in classroom activities. Um, you might remember, you might have seen this already if you were here a couple of years ago. I know the first year that I went through, I was at the middle school with you guys, and uh, I think it was Craig Nansen and I were presenting on this a while back. But it might have been a while for some of you guys, so it's good to get a refresh on some of this. Um, it's important before we even take a look at Samr that it's not about a right or wrong way of teaching. Samr doesn't tell you what to do. Samr is just a way of describing what we're seeing. So Samr is descriptive and not prescriptive. It's not going to tell you, oh, you should be doing things this way. It's just saying, this is the way that you're doing things, and let's consider, are there options that are available to you to do things different ways. And this is, a pretty good visual demonstration of what the Samr model is. The Samr model is basically just 4 levels. This model has 5 levels, or this image, but it's 4 levels of that you can take a look at of just how well or how tightly integrated technology is to your lesson planning. So, first off, we start with no tech. This was something that was possible up until like last year. You could have people saying, "Oh, I don't use tech in the classroom." It's all analog. We're doing pen and paper and books. Well, this year that wasn't really the sort of option that was available to us, given everything that's going on. But that's what we're talking about with the no tech. It's that traditional, not using any sort of digital technology in the classroom. And this has been a model or a method that's sort of been more and more difficult to adhere to. Very rarely could you find somebody who doesn't use any sort of technology in their classroom at all, and especially now that we have one-to-one devices available, and we've got projectors in the front of every room, or smart boards, as the case may be. It's very difficult for somebody to say, well, I don't use tech. A lot of people are using tech, even though they're not necessarily using it exhaustively. It's just one of those things, we used to have the overhead projectors, and now we've switched it with digital projection screens. This is a very rare place for people to start nowadays. But 5, 10, 15 years ago, it was very easy for a lot of people to say, well, I don't use any sort of tech in my classroom. Then we get into the first level of technology integration, which is substitution. It's where we're just directly taking something that was existing in the no-tech model, and we're swapping it out with something that is functionally the same. Like the example that I often use is if you have a textbook, you're replacing it with an online digital textbook. The two things act exactly the same. They serve the same purpose. You're building your lessons around them the same. That's substitution. And that falls under the first half, where we're talking about this as the enhancement half, and then later on we're going to take a look at the transformation half. So with the enhancement half, it's basically we're just using technology to enhance existing plans, existing lessons. We're just using technology to make it easier for us to deliver the traditional the same lessons that we could have used 15, 20 years ago. Augmentation is where you're using a tech tool as a direct substitute, but it has functional improvement over what you're swapping it out. So this is like the difference between a typewriter and a word processor. This is like the difference between a textbook and an e-textbook that has a feature that you can click a button and have it read the text out for you. You know, fundamentally, you're still doing the same lessons, but it's making it easier for you to deliver that content more quickly, or it's making it easier to provide accommodations for students with particular needs, particular learning demands. You know, it's these are things that just make what we already have been doing a little bit easier. Once we get into the transformation, we're starting to talk about things that we're doing that we couldn't do without the technology that's available to us. Modification, we're talking about significant task redesign. We're talking about the technology allows us to really recreate the tasks that we have planned and sort of make it a little bit more like what you would see out in the wild, out in the workplace. We're doing things like collaborating on Word documents or Google Docs. You know, we're not in the same room and we're having a meeting. These are things that are significant redesigns of the traditional task. You know, these are things that were not an option, before the tech existed. And then redefinition is even one step further than that, where the task wouldn't even be something that you wouldn't plan around it. You wouldn't even think that it was within the realm of possibility that we could be doing this in a school district. These are things like, 15 years ago, when I was in middle school, if we wanted to do a video project, we had to shoot it on a VHS camera, one of those big old over-the-shoulder beasts. And all of the editing, any like reshoots that we had to do it in the camera. All of our editing was done in the camera. Well, nowadays, every kid is walking around with a camera that, is glued to their hand. And within this little tiny device that's stuck to their hand, they have the power to be able to shoot and edit videos and make them basically professional quality, should they choose to invest the time and effort to learn that skill. Now, I'm not saying that, we should necessarily encourage that every student is walking around with their cell phone shooting videos, but, it is one of those tasks that becomes an option to us now that every device that we have basically has a camera built into it and enough horsepower to be able to edit at least simple videos. These are things that we can now ask students to do that would have been inconceivable to ask as a requirement of the class, 15 years ago. So what is the Samr model good for? As I mentioned earlier, the Samr model is good for describing the type or depth of technology use in a classroom. And it's also good for that self-assessment piece, where you can take a look at, okay, here's a lesson that I've got coming up, and I'm planning to do it this way. Well, what are the options that are available to me? Could I extend this a little bit deeper and have more meaningful technology use as I plan this? Am I just swapping something out just for the sake of swapping it out, or am I actually intending to make this matter? Am I trying to make this so that when the student does this assignment, they're also learning skills that are going to apply in high school, college, their future employer. The Samr model allows you to have a better visualization of the different levels of tech integration possible. Now, of course, it's not actually like they're not actually discrete stepping stones that you'll be able to point out along the way. it's more of a sliding scale, but you know, looking at it as there are discrete levels can help us sort of categorize, am I doing something in the substitution range when I could be doing something in the augmentation range? Am I in the augmentation range when I could be modifying? Um, you know, just having that conversation piece, that ability um, to sort of take a critical look at what we're doing. That's what the Samr model assists on. And encouragement towards depth and rigor in considering tech use. The Samr model reminds you that there is more that you could be doing with tech if you chose to make that a priority, um, and if it makes sense to. Some things it's not going to make sense to go full on redefinition for something like note taking. You know, that's something that could easily stay in substitution and possibly even stay in that no tech sort of area, just because there are certain studies that suggest that note taking on pen and paper might actually be slightly better than trying to type out notes while you're in the middle of class. The science is still pretty inconclusive on that one, but the argument is there, and I certainly wouldn't tell anybody that they're doing it wrong for telling their kids to do note taking on pen and paper. I'm the kind of guy, that's what I learned how to do, so that's what I still do. I still keep a notepad right next to me every time so that I can write things down. Even though I do have other alternatives available, I could pull out an iPad and take my notes there, but that's not how I choose to operate. Because that's not the way that I learned how to take notes. So anyway, the Samr model allows us to sort of see that depth and rigor in tech use is one of the components that we should be considering when we're planning around or planning to use tech with our lessons. And a lot of what I like to bring it back to when we're talking, especially about like the Samr model, is if you were here, if you saw the first presentation I did with you guys, I brought out my family motto, which I'm not going to try and butcher again, but it roughly translates to why we even got to do a thing. And again, this is not a rhetorical question. It started out as a rhetorical question, or me saying, I'd rather sit around all day than go out and do something. But then I really thought about it, and I was just like, well, this is a good thing to ask anytime that you're considering making a change. Is, why am I making this change? Does it benefit me? Does it benefit the people that I'm working with? Does it benefit who benefits from this action? And that kind of brings us over to the equity piece, which is very closely tied with the rest of the Samr discussion. When we're talking about Samr, we're talking about equity. We're talking about making meaningful change to make to allow students to bring skills into the next phases. When we're looking at the Samr model, we really want to spend time working on the things that our students will be using at the next level. One of the examples here is, if you're taking a look at one of those science fair cardboard standee sort of displays, that's one of those things that's like very unique and specific to the elementary, middle, high school level. But once you get out of high school, it's very rare that you'll ever have to use that skill again. And so rather than focusing on skills like that are unique to our particular branch of academia, taking that same type of skill and applying it towards something like Google Slides or something like PowerPoint, that's a skill that they're going to use for the rest of their lives. You know, assuming that they're in positions where they're going to be giving presentations, it's more advantageous for them to have had that experience making PowerPoint presentations, making Google Slides, because that's a skill that they're going to carry with them as they go to high school, as they go to college, as they get out into the workforce. And so if we don't take our opportunity, you know, the limited amount of time that we have with these kids to spend time on things that they're going to bring forward, then we're wasting our time and we're wasting theirs. Consider how the methods and tools employed will impact your students' future in academia and or the workplace. And you know, here's our mission statement across the district. We're here to prepare students to be successful at the next level of education, work, and life. You know, and this is one of those things, this is one of the reasons why we can take a look at the Samr model and consider it, you know, as what kind of an importance it has towards our consideration for how we're planning around our tech use. So, with that out of the way, if you're having any questions, feel free to type them into the chat as we go. You know, just as a reminder, you know, it's of course a little bit strange just continuously talking without any sort of feedback, but that's the kind of world that we live in right now. I'm going to go ahead and grab this link and paste it in the chat. And what this link is going to take you to is a Jamboard. Now, if you've never used Jamboard, it's kind of like this Google whiteboarding tool. And I've gone ahead and prepared one. Right up at the top, you can switch between the different slides or the different boards. And first one we have is substitution, second is augmentation, third is modification, and fourth is redefinition. Now, what I've been asking all of my groups today to think about doing is over on the left side, there is a sticky note tool. And if you click on that, you can write in a sticky note and paste that somewhere on the board. And once we have that, we can sort of move it around. We can resize it if we need more space. And I can go ahead and delete that. And what I've been having each group do is sort of put ideas for what they're doing at each level, or what they're an idea for something that could be considered one of those levels of tech integration, and just sort of contribute their ideas onto this board. And we're not going to take a look at it today because I want to give everybody another chance to participate on this. But maybe next week, if we've had enough participation on this, then we'll take a look at some of the stuff that everybody brought forward. And the hope here is that we're going to get those creative impulses flowing here, and you know, we can inspire each other into trying different things that we haven't considered. And maybe that's not something we do immediately, but maybe further on down the road. These are things that, you know, put that little spark in the back of your mind where you're like, well, I heard somebody talking about doing this. Maybe that's something that I could try with my kids. So yeah, this is going to be open. It'll be open until, you know, until we bring it back up again. I will put another link in an email that I'll send out to everybody later with the recording from this session, as well as the sign-in sheet and the next link that I'm going to paste in the chat. The next link is for this one. We're going to copy that and paste it into the chat. The links look very similar, but they're going to completely different places. The one that I just posted in the chat should take you to this page. This is the Digital Innovation Badge project that Paul Richter was putting together for teachers in the district. I mean, I contributed and a couple of other people contributed as well, but it's really his baby. With specific regard to this page, he's putting together a series of modules talking about basically proving that you are doing things at different Samr levels in your classroom. Um, so like right here, he's been putting together the one for the substitution level stuff. He doesn't really have his criteria in yet because this is still very much a work in progress. And we hope to get these all sort of put together, hopefully soon. Uh, but I believe what he's asking for is basically just a write up or a video or having one of the digital innovator team come into your classroom and just sort of witness the types of things that you're doing and whether or not you meet the criteria for these particular badges. And it looks like he's got this marked out so that it's like a half hour worth half an hour of professional development credit. And if you haven't explored the rest of this digital innovation badge project page, I would recommend everybody taking a look. There are ones for things like Google Classroom. We've got 3 hours worth of online trainings available. And it's very conceivable that, with the amount of work that you guys have put into Google Classroom at this point, you could probably knock out 3 hours worth of professional development credit in like an hour, hour and a half. So you'll still get credit for 3 hours, even though you only maybe needed to do an hour worth of work. And that's because you've already done a significant portion of the work that's required to meet the criteria for the Google Classroom badges. So it is worth taking a look at the criteria and seeing if, how much work would you actually have to do in order to get the credit for these hours. Because that credit is there, that's something that you can do. Lots of other things on here. The online learning page has a bunch of different tools that are things that you can take a look at and earn credit for. So, it's just good to know that this is a resource that exists for you. And again, I will link that in the email that I send out later. And with that, I think I've said everything that I was planning on saying today. I'll stop the recording here. Oh wait, there was one last thing. Somebody had a really good question early on, earlier on in the day about Samr, the Samr model. And it was basically, is this a recommendation that you should be aiming for redefinition all the time? And the answer to that is no. It's best to have a mix of all the different levels. And part of that is because it's good to just experience the different ways that you can use tech from a student side. But then from the planning side, it would be impossible to have every single lesson be a redefining lesson. There's just not enough hours in the day. There's not enough contact hours with students to have a redefinition level assignment with everybody. So, realistically, redefinition isn't necessarily the best fit for every objective. If you're just doing a note-taking sort of thing, that might be just fine at the substitution level. That might be fine at the augmentation level. It doesn't have to be something redefining the way that you take notes. If you figure something out like that, that's great. You can do that. But it comes down to a cost-benefit analysis of where do I have the time to expend planning these things? Where do we have the time during contact hours to work on this kind of stuff? And where do they have the time at home to polish up on these skills or apply these skills while they're doing their schoolwork at home? So that was the last component that I had to make sure to get out there. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording, and if you have any questions, you can stick around and ask them now, or if you're watching the recording, go ahead and email me. And stop.